So what distinguishes men such as Edmund Hillary, Chuck Yeager, and Roger Bannister from the rest of us is that they were able to successfully set their mind to their goals, ignoring all sensations of pain, of boredom, blocking out all distractions until they accomplished what they set out to do. It is this ability to successfully set our mind to our goals that enables us to accomplish literally whatever we set our mind to. Needless to say, this is a very powerful tool and one that is highly sought after. Now, while Hillary was able to successfully set his mind to climbing Mount Everest, many of us struggle nearly every day to uphold commitments that are, ostensibly, much less demanding than scaling a 29,000-foot mountain. Whether it's reading the New York Times every morning to become a more informed citizen, writing 1,000 words every afternoon to become a better writer, or going for a run every evening just to shed a few pounds, there are commitments we make throughout life that we struggle to uphold and inevitably quit. And after we quit these commitments, we feel pretty bad about ourselves. We feel like quitters, and we feel like failures in certain respects. Now, I can't think of a better way to spend the next few minutes than to talk about how we, like Hillary, Yeager, and Bannister, and many others before us, can successfully set our mind to our goals without quitting before we have accomplished them. Let's get started. So first we need to talk about what it means to set your mind to something. Now, setting our mind to something entails a commitment to doing what is necessary in order to accomplish our goals. So if we have someone named Marty, and Marty sets his mind to running a marathon, what Marty has done is he has committed to adhering to a strict diet and exercise regimen. He is committed to running a certain number of miles each week, and taking a certain amount of fluids each day, and taking a certain amount of carbs, that sort of thing. And next we need to talk about what enables us to successfully set our mind to something. What gives us the capacity to successfully uphold our commitments? What enables us to successfully set our mind to our goals and accomplish them? Now, what some people will tell you is that it comes down to choice, that in virtue of having free will, in virtue of being able to freely choose, we can choose to successfully uphold our commitments, and we can choose to successfully set our mind to accomplishing our goals. Now, people adhering to this belief would say that Marty can successfully set his mind to running the marathon if he actively chooses to adhere to his diet and exercise regimen. And this seems simple enough, but if we put this into practice, there are some practical complications that arise. For instance, if you genuinely believe that we can all choose to uphold the commitments that we make, that we can all choose to successfully set our mind to anything, then if you have a friend who comes up to you, who has recently quit smoking, for instance, and he asks you, how can I uphold this commitment I've made to not smoke and block out the temptation to revert to my old habits, you would tell him, well, it's quite simple, really. Whenever you're thinking about smoking, you know that feeling? Just choose not to smoke, and you'll be all set. That's all there is to it. Now, this seems pretty strange, and there's a reason for that. It's because this explanation overlooks the fact that when we are in a conflict, when we are thinking about quitting, it doesn't feel like we can simply choose our way out of it. It feels like there's a force pushing us against our will towards quitting. It doesn't feel like free will even may be at play here. And it definitely feels like choice on its own cannot get us out of this struggle. Now, something that this perspective cannot take into account, and simply cannot account for, is why we make commitments in the first place. Why we choose to set our mind to goals in the first place. And this is a pretty important question that we need to answer. Because if we can't answer the question why we make commitments, why we set our mind to goals, then why should we even care about our ability to successfully set our mind to our goals? And why should we even care about our ability to successfully uphold commitments? And quite simply, the answer to that question is we are passionate about the goals to which we set our mind, and we are passionate about the commitments we make. That's why we make them in the first place. Likewise, I believe it is our passion for the goals to which we set our mind, is the passion for the commitments that we make, which enables us, more than that, which determines us whether we are able to successfully uphold that commitment, and whether or not we are able to successfully set our mind to that goal and accomplish that goal. So if we set our mind to a goal about which we are passionate, if we commit to something about which we are passionate, we will have no choice but to successfully set our mind to that goal until we accomplish it, we will have no choice but to successfully uphold the commitment that we made. Additionally, if we set our mind to a goal that we do not care about very much, if we commit to something about which we care very little for, then we won't be capable of successfully setting our mind to that goal and accomplishing that goal, and we will not be capable of successfully upholding a commitment to that goal. Now, this may sound a little strange, and it's not to say that the goals that we are able to achieve and the commitments we are able to uphold are easy, are totally devoid of hardship. But there is a distinct difference between hardships we embrace as something that we need to get through in order to accomplish a goal that we care deeply about, and hardships that we encounter that make us step back for a moment and realize that the goal that we are after is not something that we really care about, and that we should cease going after that goal. Now, this shouldn't be too surprising of a conclusion, because we've already made a connection between how much passion we have for our goal and our ability to successfully set our mind to and accomplish that goal. And we can see this in terms of language. For instance, during a post-game interview after a sporting event, the reporter will often ask, well, the star athletes, how was the team able to hold on during the final few minutes of the game? How was the team able to win? And the player will often respond, well, we cared about it more than the other team. So we have made this connection, but while we've connected the dots, we haven't examined the line. That is to say, we haven't examined what this conclusion entails. And one of the first things that we should infer from this conclusion is that if we want to be able to successfully set our mind to our goals, if we want to be able to successfully uphold our commitments, we need to be spending a lot more time in our lives on self-discovery, on self-reflection, on finding out what we really care about in life, so that we can make commitments to what we are passionate about. We can set our mind to goals about which we are passionate, and we will have no choice but to accomplish those goals and to uphold those commitments. Now, some of you may not be on board with this because it feels a little strange to say that when we commit to a goal that we are passionate about, we have no choice but to fulfill it. And when we set our mind to a goal about which we are not passionate, we are not capable of achieving it. However, this isn't very problematic. See, what happens is we become so obsessed with individual autonomy, with empowerment of the individual, that we have overlooked the fact that there are some commitments in life and there are some goals in life that we simply should not want ourselves to even be capable of achieving. And we can think about this in terms of long-term romantic relationships. You shouldn't want yourself to even be capable of marrying someone whom you do not love, for instance. And this actually points to a very important function of quitting within this perspective. You see, what quitting does is that it prevents us from committing to things about which we care very little, or setting our mind to goals, working very hard towards those goals, putting in a lot of effort, a lot of time towards a goal that if we were to reach it, we would feel very dissatisfied upon realizing that's not something we cared about in the first place. Now, this is a totally different perspective on quitting than most of us had going into this talk. Most of us have looked upon quitting as a certain defect, as something that makes us feel bad about ourselves, something that makes us look down upon ourselves for. But there's nothing intrinsic about quitting that should make us feel bad whenever we quit. There's nothing intrinsic about quitting that makes it a defect. When we quit and we feel bad about ourselves after, it's not the action of quitting that's making us feel bad. It's the belief that we could have done otherwise. It's the belief that we chose to quit, that we could have chosen to uphold the commitment that we made, that we could have chosen to successfully reach our goal. You see, this may not sound entirely correct at first, but we can actually explain this in terms of Spider-Man. You see, one of Spider-Man's famous adages is, with great power comes great responsibility. So if we believe that we have the power to successfully uphold all of our commitments by choosing, and that we can choose to successfully set our mind to any goal and accomplish those goals, then when we fail to accomplish those goals, when we fail to uphold those commitments, which we inevitably will in some cases in life, then we have no one to blame but ourselves, because we held ourselves solely responsible. Not only that, but when we think that quitting is something we chose to do, we go to external resources for help. We go to self-help seminars, we read self-help books, we watch TED Talks on how we can uphold our commitments and how we can successfully set our mind to our goals. But the answer isn't out there, it's in here. If you want to successfully set our mind to goals, we need to discover what we are passionate about. If we want to successfully uphold commitments, we need to discover what we are passionate about. Because it is only the commitments to things about which we are passionate, and it is only the goals about which we are passionate that we will be able to achieve and uphold in this life. Now, another important function of quitting is that it tells us a lot about who we are. It lends itself to self-discovery, which in turn lends itself to our ability to uphold our commitments and to successfully set our mind to our goals. For instance, when you quit a commitment or when you cease pursuing a certain goal, this isn't something that you should look upon as a defect or try to overcome through empowering the will or something of that nature. It's an indicator. It's an indicator of who you are as a person. It's an indicator that you aren't very attached to the commitment that you quit, that you do not care passionately about the goal that you set your mind to in the first place. And once we can step away from these goals about which we care very little, once we can quit these commitments which we care very little, we can explore other interests in life. We can commit to other interests in life, upholding some of these commitments and quitting others, but all in the search for what it is we are truly passionate about in life. And once we can find the things about which we are passionate in life, it is only natural for us to strictly make commitments to things about which we are passionate, to strictly commit to people who we love, and to strictly set our mind to goals about which we are passionate. And once we do that, we really can accomplish anything we set our mind to. Thank you.